Hi guys, and welcome to the LED product training series. So what we're here to do today is we're here to go through part 5 of LED strip. Now this is the important one. This is installing LED strip. Really important, because if you get the installation right, everything else just falls into place and you have a happy customer, and like a happy wife, a happy customer is a happy wife, is a happy life. This is a common question is, where do I start? So we've spoke to our customer at this point. We've designed the installation to their requirements. We know what they want. We know how they want it. Now I've got to select the products. I've got to install it. I'm not sure. I've never done it before. Well, let's start on this multiple step journey. There's simple steps. They're easy steps. We have a conversation as we go through. So let's have a look. All right, there is definitely, like with everything in life, there's a process to follow, and this process is not as big as you think. Okay, so step 1, we're going to check the site and confirm the LED strip can be installed as intended and is fit for purpose. There's a key word. It's got to be fit for purpose, or key phrase, because it's pointless putting an internal strip where a weatherproof strip should go. So it's got to be fit for purpose. So assess your situation. Analyze where your power is in relation to where your drivers are going to be located. All right, check, measure the lengths of LED strip which are required, and work out where you want the connection cables. Power, driver, controller, LED strip. That's the process. So we want 240 volt to our driver. Between our driver and our controller is 12 volts, so we need to have cable. We have to consider voltage drop there, and then between our controller and our LED strip, we've got to be mindful of the distance and the voltage drop there as well. Okay, how you intend to cut and connect your cables to the LED strip, there are several factors which need to be considered. Ensure you keep within the maximum length you can run LED strip. There's a chart available for that. Select and check your controller and remotes, assessing voltage drop, power supply, aluminium profiles if they're required, testing the installation. Boom. Now, the one thing we'll qualify first, is there a difference between indoor and outdoor LED strip? Yes, there is. And it's quite noticeable. Basically, an indoor LED strip is SMD LEDs attached straight to a flexible printed circuit board. The IP65 is the same, but it's in a silicon cover, which the ends then seal it at each end, and it then becomes an IP65 weatherproof strip. It's not submersible, but it's a weatherproof strip. Whereas our indoor strip is exposed to all the elements and would fail pretty quickly out in the weather. All right. Now, this might sound funny, and it may look strange and wonder why I'm even telling you this. But the number of people that pick up an LED strip, they go to the wholesalers and they'll go and buy an LED strip, and we might have a piece of LED strip like this, where, if we can just zoom that camera in, the cut points are actually some distance apart. Okay, so the fact that these cut points are so far apart and where my two fingers are, what they'll do is, but I need it cut here in the middle, and they'll cut it. Now what that does is, at the cut points, whereas our printed circuit board is all crossed over and like that as it goes through the LED strip, when it comes to those cut points, it comes out and it goes straight. So when I go and do a cut, I'm cutting the straight parts, no shorting. If I cut it anywhere else, anywhere, that's not a cut point, I'm shorting out the LED strip. So always, where you can see those copper dots that I illustrated before, and as you can see in your paperwork, which you will have downloaded through the link straight away, when you look at those cut points, which are up here, you will have seen that that's where you cut it. We've got a pair of scissors indicated there. It's cut along the line. All the paperwork that comes with it all illustrates that's the cut point. If you cut it anywhere else, you'll damage the LED strip, and you may damage to the fact that you can't just replace that section, you have to replace the whole piece. All right, so just be mindful of that. Cutting it in the location as indicated, nowhere else. All right, methods of connecting the cable to the LED strip. This is a common question. You know, we have multiple options available. The preferred option is solder. Solder lasts forever. It's not limited or restricted by current carrying capacity or anything like that. It's a done once, move away, move on to the next job kind of situation. Okay, soldering is the preferred. Direct solder onto it, and all you really need to do is go and get yourself one of the small, fine-tipped, high-temperature soldering irons and a fine solder. You just scrub the tip of your soldering iron onto the copper soldering on the copper dot or the soldering point, dab it, then tin your cable, and then just attach the two. Okay, yes, sure, when you get the multicolours and things like that, they're very small, but it's still doable. And if you do it right, it'll last forever. Okay, using a connector, look, they do last, but they don't last forever. Eventually, they're bimetallic, they heat up, they cool down, they could lose a bit of tension. You could lose one colour, you could lose two colours, but by soldering, you remove all of that issue. The other way of doing it is what we call the clamping method. Now, the clamping method is simply that. It's a clamping method. So we've got a couple of pieces here, and all as it is just, we have two bimetallic contacts in there. So what we do is we get the LED strip and we simply slide it in and under those. Right, like that, and then we clamp it down. All right, so this is what it looks like at the end of on there. Now, that's all well and good, and look, that's a good solid connection, right? I put a lot of force in then to pull that off, but it's bimetallic. Eventually it heats up, it might get loose, it might be, you know, if you haven't got it on there correctly, it could work for a while, create a hot joint and then fail. Reliable if done properly. So if you're going to use this method, take your time, check you've got it in, before you clamp it down, check your contacts are all on there, that they're lined up correctly, and that it's pushed all the way on, and then when you clamp it down, it's nice and firm. That's all we ask, but always use a 9-volt battery to check whether you're soldering, whether you're using that method, or whether you're about to use the X method, the X1 method, which is this bar. Doesn't matter. Make sure, test it with a 9-volt battery to ensure, or a 12-volt power supply, doesn't matter. Just make sure it's all working before you install, and that way you can be confident that it's going to be okay. Okay, so as we were just talking about, the other one is a slide bar connector, which basically it looks exactly the same as that. Okay, so the slide bar connector is probably a little bit better than the clamp, only because it has multiple bars. So when you slide the actual contact in, it slides in, but it's going not on just one point, it's going on three, and they're actually a sprung metal bar, and they actually hold down quite nice and tight. That is solder, then the slide bar or the slide clip method, and thirdly, this one would be the third option. All right, or the third preferred option. Okay, so all of those are easy to do, but always before you install it, get a 9-volt battery. Just put a 9-volt battery across it to test that your LED strip's working. If you've got RGB or RGBW, hold your positive on and just tap the other cables all the way through until you've tested every color before you install it. Then once you've installed it, give it another test again to make sure you've got all the colors correct. That is where people fall down most of all, is they're not testing before the install and they're not testing after the install. If you test it, and it doesn't work, you're still at that point that you can rectify it nice and easily. And look, most times it's either you haven't slid the connector on properly, you haven't pushed the little bar up on that one, you haven't locked it in properly, or something very, very simple, or even you put a little bit too much solder and two colours are touching, so you're getting a mix of colour. Right? It's as simple as just rectify it now, saves you so much time down the track. An indoor LED strips, always start by ensuring the surface that you're about to stick the LED strip to is clear from any debris, dirt, oil, water, whatever it might be, and have a look at the situation and say, yep, I'm going to put it up there, it's going to be fine, I can install it now. So pick your time of installation, because you don't want to go install it and then find out the builder's going to come through and he's grinding the concrete floor, or he's going to be grinding a wall, or the painter's coming through and he's going to paint. Because the first thing they'll do is they'll paint over your LED strip, guarantee it. Okay, if you're putting LED strip, because it does generate an amount of heat, it does have double-sided tape on the back of it, but if you lie it on some flat aluminium profile, or if you're using a profile and you sit it in the aluminium, perfect, because that helps with dissipating the heat, and also helps with the longevity of the LED strip. All right. Now, just taking a step back there, when we're talking about LED strip, remember, you cannot do a 90-degree turn. Right? Never turn corners greater than about 30 degrees. If you can get something around something like that, you know, you could possibly get it around a corner. But if you're doing a coffer or something and you come up to a corner, if you do that, what happens is you have bright spots on the ceiling. So you're better off running it straight, soldering a couple of cables, or use a connector to bring the cables around the corner, and then start straight again. The flatter you can keep that, the more efficient the light is going to be that you get off it. If you start to twist it and turn it, it's going to go all over the shot. And because you're either under a bench or in a ceiling or doing something like that, when you twist it, it's noticeable, because it actually aims the light away from where all the other lights are. And the fact that they come out at 120 degrees, it could cause you issues, and it could cause you issues with your customers. So just be mindful on that one. All right. Weatherproof strip installation. All right, ensure that you have reinstalled or sealed the weatherproof strips. Now, what happens is, when we get our weatherproof strip, when you get a pack, it comes on a roll, 5-meter roll, but it comes like this. But at this point in time, that's not a weatherproof strip, because that's all open. But what it does come with is some sleeves. You slide a sleeve over, silicone in the hole, silicone that end, and then your cables come out of the other end, and once you've got it all ready, you slide the cover over, you silicone that end, and you slide the cover on, and it's then becomes sealed. Right, if you really wanted to be smart, you could warm it up, turn it on, warm it up, let a bit of heat get in there, and then seal it, because when it cools down, it creates a vacuum and seals itself even better. All right, so just remember that when you're using this, you must ensure that this is sealed to maintain its IP65. Right. Step 4. Now, we all understand there's a maximum length of LED strip and things like that. So now we have to go through and select all of our equipment, okay? And we have to understand how it's going to be installed and things. So this is where we can go through. There's all the specs on all the LED strip. Then we've got all the specs on the controllers and remotes and the power supplies. Pick and choose your power supply. Make sure you have the right power supply. Do I need a dimmable power supply? Do I not? What controller? If I'm using a controller, I don't need a dimmable power supply. Continually asking yourself questions, and make sure every time you do it, you're writing down what you want and where you need it. Step 5 is we've got to select our controller. So our customer has already told us that Will previously, he said he wants to do it with a remote control. So I can forget about the Dali, I can forget about both the Dalis, the DMX and the 0 to 10. I'm going to the Wi-Fi RF controller. Simply put, because he wants to use a handheld remote control. Okay, so the remote control that I'm going to use also is, he only wants one zone, so I can just go for the RGBW remote controller, because that's perfect for me. I don't need to go to the 8 zone, and I don't need the wall mounted controller, and we've got a single color there. We don't need either of those because we're going for RGB. So there's only one controller that I want. We have all these other controllers available as well, but I don't need them. I've got the one controller that I need. Again, these wiring examples or these drawings here are to help you understand how to install it once you've got it all set up. So we know we're going for RGBW, so we're looking at the RGBW connection diagram. So at Wills we know what we've got to do to actually get it all installed. Okay, step 6. Before we do this, and this is taken from part 1, we've got to understand that, okay, I'm going to put my controller here, but my LED strip is over here. I have to work out that if it's over 3 meters, I've got to start to consider voltage drop because the cable's so small. Okay, you have to really stop and think. So we discussed this further, but it's part of step 6 is what you've got to do. You've got to look at voltage drop. We're only dealing with 12 volts, guys. There's not a lot of room downwards to go. So if you can keep it as close to 12 volts, the quality of your LED strip is really going to stay up there. Okay, now we spoke about power supplies previously in step 5, but that was to give us a bit of now we know the wattage, we've picked our LED strip, we know what wattage is, now I have to select the power supply. Now, when we're looking at power supplies, we're going to be going for a non-dimmable because we're using a controller. Now, the one thing I need you to understand with the non-dimmable power supplies, if we look at an ML PSWP 100, we know the voltage in is 240 volts. We know the output voltage is 12. The rated wattage is 100, but the maximum load wattage is only 80 watts. And we've got 2 outputs. Right, so the fact that our maximum load wattage is only 80 watts, that's the benchmark. That's what we have to look at. So if we're at 85 watts, we've actually got to go up one because we're over what it's actually capable of producing. All right, so bear that in mind. Always look, and don't look at the first rated wattage. Look at the maximum load wattage because that's the one that's going to trick you up. All right, so it's always 80%. When we look at dimmable ones though, dimmable ones, the rated wattage and the maximum load wattage are the same. Okay, but they're a totally different driver, but the two of them are totally different. One is dimmable, one is not, but that's not the only. The actual componentry is very, very different. Okay, now, when we spoke to Will, he didn't mention anything about aluminium profiles because he didn't know, and I didn't ask the question. But now I've been out and I've had a look at his job, and I've now worked out that it's going to be safer and more practical for me to put the LED strip in an aluminium profile. Because first of all, I can lay it out on the floor, I can test it, I can check it, make sure it's all right, but then I can lift the whole aluminium strip up into the coffer, and it's got a bit of timber there which it's going to sit on, which we're going to use liquid nails to stick it onto that timber. Now, the benefit of that is it's got a diffuser on it, so it's actually protected from the elements, and the diffuser removes all the dots from the ceiling. So by using a universal LED strip, I've removed the issue of dots on the ceiling. The opaque diffuser has now given me a nicer light. I've still got all my colour, I've got the full colour spectrum, but my LED strip has now got a heatsink as well because it's in an aluminium extrusion. On the PowerPoint presentation, as I have in your paperwork, I've included all of the profiles which are available from Emelec. Okay, so all of these profiles are available. I've put the lengths, the widths, the sizes, the cutout widths and things like that, especially for recessed for cabinet makers, the slim for cabinet makers. It's all there. Now, one thing I will highlight, if you are looking at using the slim, it's a fantastic, it's really tiny, it's awesome looking. However, the diffuser slides in from the end. So wherever you use it, you must have access to one end to slide it in. The way it's designed, you cannot clip it in from the front. All right, all the others you can clip in from the front. However, the slim must slide in from one end. All right, so step 9, connecting and testing. Out of everything, connecting and testing is probably the most important. And simply because a lot of people just throw it together and expect it all to work. We need to make sure that it works. So, what are we going to do? So, we're using the 1009 Fowey in this case. Okay, so we're going to wire it up according to the connection diagram, which was previous. We're going to wake up the remote by touching the on-off button, press the learning button on the receiver, touch any zone button on the remote control, then rotate your finger around the colour wheel. So now we've told it, connected light will blink and confirm zone designated. Great. So that means it's all up and running, so which is great. Now, to delete, we can go through all of that, but that should work the first time out of the box. Okay, so we've got it all there. Now that's great, the remote works, everything else works, but what if I have a bit of an issue? You know, it's not everything's perfect. So the one thing we've got to check is we've got to choose whether this is going to be a master or a slave. Now we may have missed that step previously, but now we have to make sure. Okay, so it's a short circuit for master and open circuit for slave. And it's a little jumper. You'll need your long nose pliers to be able to do it, but make sure, check that. And then each remote controls 4 zone areas. Receivers in each area can learn as many receivers as you can. All right. Each receiver manually can control up to 8 different remotes. So the Fowey can control up to 8 different remotes. All right. So just remember that. But that master and slave is very important. Look, this is testing the LED strip. This is continued from previously. This is a really important stage to ensure the connections of your LED strip. So most of the calls I get are my LED strip, I can't get a colour, or something's not working, or you know, the remote's paired but it won't give me the right colours. The issue normally lies from the end of the controller to the beginning of the LED strip. Okay, there's normally a wiring connection issue or a wire around the wrong way, and it's really, really simple to do. So we've got a really simple solution. Get yourself a 9-volt battery, as you can see on the PowerPoint presentation, and as indicated in here as well. Get a 9-volt battery, put a cape on it and a couple of leads on it. Now, we're going to put the black cable into the positive. Okay, so the black being our positive, we want it in the positive. All right, the negative cable, right, we're going to use the negative cable to touch each of the colours. Okay, so when we put it on red, the LED strip should go red. It won't be at full brilliance because it's only a 9-volt battery, but the LED strip should go red. When we put it on green, the LED strip should go green. If we get LED strip, we put it on green and it goes blue, and then we put it on blue and it goes green, we've got to flick those 2 wires around. Okay, but it's a way of checking our cabling and the LED strip from the controller out. It's not done enough. It needs to be done, and it's a standard test. Now, if you don't have a 9-volt battery, simply put your cables in on the other end. So basically, put 2 bits of building wire in at this end here on our 12-volt end, and use those bits of building wire to actually do the same thing. Right? So you put the positive into the positive terminal. Using the negative leg, we're going to go red, green, blue, white, and we're going to check it. So if you haven't got a 9-volt battery, use the cables in your hand. Right? Use a bit of building wire. Screw it into those terminals. There's extra terminals there, so you're not going to affect anything. Just put them in those extra terminals and use the 12-volt power supply to actually control it and test it. Once you've tested that, and if that's all fine, you can come back and say, okay, maybe my controller's faulty. All right? But you've tested from there out. Right? And it's pointless testing from saying that the controller's faulty if you haven't tested that. All right? So once you've done that test, you can be confident that your wiring is fine, your LED strip is fine, my controller's faulty. Okay, and your phone is up and we organise whatever we need to organise. Again, there's the wiring examples. We've got optional drivers depending on what's required. All right. Again, then we will go into voltage drop and how to calculate the voltage drop. Look, we've been over this in every chapter. By now, you should be aware. I'm hoping that it's all sinking in, that's something. We've mentioned it previously in this actual lesson. But please, voltage drop is the biggest issue I face on a day-to-day basis. And I don't always have the solution because a lot of the guys can't access the cables. Once they're installed, and they can't upgrade them because they go down through walls, under floors, or whatever it might be. Do your homework first. It's really, really important. Okay, and we've got the formulas there. We've got a link to our Excel voltage drop calculator. That will be going up on our website at some point. But it's not there yet, and that's why we're more than happy to put it up and let people access it straight away. So it's just a really important step that if you don't do it, it's really going to cost us at the end of the day. All right, so in conclusion, the time taken to design and to be prepared for an LED strip installation is going to ensure you an efficient, simple, practical installation, saving you money at the end of the day, because the one thing you don't want to do is to keep coming back and fixing things because you were unaware. The testing, it's got to happen. Listen to your customer. Pick the LED strip that is fit for purpose. I face that issue a lot. Design the entire system taking into consideration the watts per meter. That comes down to how bright your customer wants it. The length of the LED strip, remember there's limitations. How the LED strip is going to be controlled, the size and type of the power supply or driver and where is it to be located, the length of tails, cables connecting the driver and the strip, taken into consideration voltage drop, the type of connection process. Look, practice soldering. It lasts forever. Just practice soldering. Ensure you have the correct controller and remote. So don't go buying a DALI if it's just a Wi-Fi RF, because A, they're very expensive, and B, they won't do what you want it to do. If used, ensure you have the correct aluminium profile and understand the installation process for that product. Now look, you can't really go wrong with aluminium profiles, but like I said, if you get a slimline profile, remember one end has to be fully accessible to slide the diffuser in, otherwise you won't be putting the diffuser in. And lastly, test. Before you install, once you've installed, and then do your final test once you've got everything wired up and ready to go. All right, I cannot emphasize that enough. All right, to help you though, we have a lot of resources on our website and they're continually growing. You've already joined MWorld. Get other people to join MWorld and give them the benefit of these courses if you believe there's benefit in them. The on-site warranty program has now changed. You no longer have to register your site. So just lodge your claim if you have a claim, but we need proof of purchase and things like that. All right, so also we have a tech line and we're there and happy to support. I am an electrical contractor, Tim is an electrical contractor. We're both still active contractors, so you know we can talk to you on the same level and have an understanding of some of the issues that you face, because we are the same as you guys. So if you have any issues, please give us a call and we'll certainly help you through any of your issues or any site issues or any questions that you may have. And there is a questionnaire or a small assessment at the end of this program. Please complete that and click submit, and one of our offers start. Now, this being the last one, there will be a certificate saying that you have completed. Your name will go onto MWorld to say to people that you are a preferred installer of LED strip. You've completed all 5 parts, and you will also get a gift in the mail. That does change season to season. I couldn't even tell you what it is at the moment, but yep, get them finished, get your gift, and yeah, be a preferred installer in the location that you're in. Thanks for coming on the journey. I can now have my first coffee. Yes, I'd like it to be a beer, but thank you for coming on the journey. Have an awesome day, and here's to only good business practices and good business. Enjoy.